Welcome, and thank you for joining CBTS Tech Talk. I'm the producer, Lance Hart, and today we will be discussing the top 5 cybersecurity trends for 2023. I'm joined by our security experts, Tim Lindner, Director, Technical Sales Engineering, John Brueggemann, Consulting CISO, Ryan Hamrick, Manager, Security Consulting and Services, Chris DeBrenner, Director, Security Operations and Compliance. Guys, welcome. John, let's jump right in.
Thanks, Lance. Good to see everybody here in the new year.
Hi, John.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Ryan, we're here to talk about trends in 2023. So you get the first one. Are we done with ransomware yet?
That's an interesting way to phrase a question, but I would absolutely say no. Ransomware trends in 2022 weren't super spiky compared to 2021.
Persistent, perhaps.
It seemed to be sort of the same level, a little bit higher, according to the data that we're starting to see come out from companies that collect that data. But I would say we're definitely not done with it. But start to think of it more, it's going to become more extortionary than ransomy. They're starting to front end some of the tactics with more extortion tactics rather than the ransomware tactics. And other ransomware suites, ransomware as a service like Lockbit 3.0, for instance, has started to add additional functionality to their suites.
Exfiltrating the data.
Exfiltrating, well, they're adding DDoS functionality into their suites as well.
Yeah, the DDoS part seems a little strange to me as an add-on to ransomware. I mean, it's a denial thing, Chris.
Like we add services to our portfolio, the threat actors are adding additional enhancements to their portfolio. Yeah, it's just one more thing that they can stitch together to get what they want.
Unfortunately, that's true. And the DDoS that people want to think of is not necessarily a billion packets a second hitting your firewall. It's more they're denying you access to your data.
Well, yeah, it's also service denial. Yeah, actual service denial functionality within the software itself, as far as I understand it. I haven't used the software myself to be able to tell you for sure one way or the other, but another thing to notice is that there's some shifting of groups now that has been reported lately. I just read the Talos report for 2022, and it doesn't include quarter 4 data. It's quarter 1 through 3.
Yeah.
But in there, they mentioned that the Conti group has shut down operations about August, but other groups have stepped up to take over some of that.
That's right. And some of that is that Conti probably disbanded into smaller subgroups.
Well, yeah, the people still need to want to make the money.
Oh, yes.
So the revenue stream closed. They got to open new revenue streams. And
then the other big actors out there, Vice Society, who tends to target school systems for whatever reason.
Right.
And Lapsus that just buys access. They'll pay you $10,000 if you're a low-level person who's willing to give up their job for $10,000. A quick hit, they give them your username and password, and next thing you know, Lapsus has entry to Google and Okta. I mean, those were the big ones in January 2022. So we're not going to be done with ransomware anytime soon.
And, it's education was a higher trend sector this past year. Local governments, municipalities, pay attention to what you're doing. Make sure you have your backups, offline backups. Still need that functionality, that protection. It started to see a little bit. I mean, there's a little hint that ransomware groups actually have a little bit of ethics, as there was a recent story of a Canadian hospital, children's hospital, that was a pediatric hospital system that was hit by Lockbit ransomware, and they said, "Sorry, here's the keys," and we fired those affiliates.
We fired the affiliates.
I don't know what their hiring process is, but they have a firing process.
It's just another reminder that it's business.
It's a business.
It is a business.
It's just business.
And it's $1 billion business.
Yes.
$43 billion, something like that is a number that I've heard this past year.
Well, $43 billion was the FBI's reported through the ICCC, the ICC.org site or .fbi.gov site that allows people who have experienced an incident to report it to the FBI.
Yep.
And one of the things to take away from that for anybody that's listening is that there is an agent that will receive every incident that's reported to IC3, so it will get looked at. You may not hear back from an agent per se, but you definitely want to report it to the
Right.
FBI. Has statistics on that.
Right. And the FBI definitely does follow up on a lot of reports and incidents.
Yeah.
And we know that firsthand, being, who we are.
So Ryan, I wanted to follow up on a statement that you made around state and local government and education being hit more with ransomware. So why is it those are the easier targets or the most targeted industries as of right now and as of late?
I think because for the most part, security is an afterthought for some of those areas, those organizations. It's not a priority. It's not a great thing that they put their money towards, and I think that it's something they should really focus on and take a look at this year.
Cool.
Yep. They're easier targets.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine education because they seem to have to be more open for educational purposes. But I would think state and local government, given the data that they have, that they would need to shore up things a little bit more. But
You'd like to think so.
It's all about the money. It's about
is.
to be able to spend the money on security.
And budget, right.
Yeah.
I mean, if the leadership of the organization does not believe that they are at risk, and I have talked with numerous organizations over the last 18 months that their leadership, by and large, is not worried about the cyber threat that's out there, so they don't invest. And it's surprising to me, but then I do talk to a lot of people that don't seem to think about cybersecurity at all. So it's where you focus.
Right.
So lack of focus, lack of budget, maybe lack of resources.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All of that.
Yeah.
Lack of training, lack of awareness. Yes.
Yeah. And I would definitely encourage folks to invest in awareness and training at a bare minimum, for even if you don't have budget for purchasing a particular tool or product to protect a particular asset. Investing in the training is going to be key, because your users, your employees, are your front line of defense, and you can turn them into a group's, a crowdsource to report, fictitious emails or, phishing emails. You have to train them appropriately so they can understand it and recognize it. But it's definitely one of those things where you can crowdsource it and turn your users into an asset rather than being perceived as a liability.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we do our annual, cybersecurity awareness training in the month of October, right? So not only do we talk about it with our customers, but we certainly, do it ourselves.
I think we'll move on to our second question, because I did happen to mention tools, and the tool buzzword that's certainly got some traction in 2022 and is getting more traction is XDR, MDR, EDR. So Chris, tell us, what's the difference between XDR and MDR?
Thanks, John. Thanks for the easy one here.
Yes.
There's a lot of misconceptions. My understanding of the market and what Gartner and Forrester and what everybody is telling, the difference of these, what these different tools are. Essentially, EDR is a tool. XDR is a tool. And MDR is the key part with MDR is using, whether it's EDR or XDR, SIM, whatever. The M is the important part. It's the managed. Having a third party manage and respond and help you through utilizing the tool, making sure it's healthy, making sure it's available, making sure it's up to date, continually improving those tools, reporting, and then working in a partnership with the customer to make sure that they are building an effective security roadmap throughout the life of that contract.
Right, and one of the biggest issues that I've found talking with various customers over the last 12 to 18 months is they have a good tool set in place. They might have a really good endpoint detection and response tool, but they don't have somebody looking at the alerts every day of the week. And unfortunately, the threat actors know that, so they tend to, they can target holidays, extended breaks when they know that people are probably not looking at it. And the managed part of managed detection and response is that's what that trusted third party does, is monitor it on that 7x24 basis.
So I would say it's kind of a combination. It's a combination of not having the resources to be able to monitor and see that information, but I think there's also some alert fatigue. So many of these devices, are kicking out so many alerts or and you have to sift through so much data that in the big pool of data, you're missing the big things that are happening, right? The big incidents that are happening to where you can go respond to those. So those are getting through. I mean, some of the largest, breaches in recent history have been, due to lack of resources monitoring or having all the latest technologies and tools, but yet again, alert fatigue, so many things coming in from so many different areas that they just can't keep up.
Yep.
So MDR, having, an organization doing that on your behalf and helping you with that is
it's all they do.
Certainly key. And it's all they do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all they do. So
That's right.
One of the things that you get once you've been in this industry long enough, the experience allows you to say, oh, look, this is, a failed authentication to an internal SQL database. You can think back and say, oh, we just pushed out an update. Maybe somebody forgot to update a password in a store. So that failed attempt is not a break-in. That's not a critical incident, or even it may not even be an incident. It may just be an event. It's a known feature, and I'm gonna have to tell the programming guys, hey, check this because I think you forgot to update, a password.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, a lot of what we do is, there's obviously the analysis piece, but it's also the validation. A business is a living organism. There's constant change. And honestly, one of the first things that we do to help, either prove that it is a true positive, not a false positive, is validating and looking at, change conflicts, looking at upgrades, looking at patches, maintenance windows. That's but obviously we're going to follow through just to make, super sure that it is, something that is hopefully benign.
Yeah, or that it has to be taken action immediately. I mean,
Right.
One of the things that you'd also want to be able to do is, this is, indicators of compromise are coming across saying that this machine is now starting to encrypt its, files, or there's a tremendously high number of transactions on this disk that don't look standard. Let's isolate it from the network, assuming it's not a production server that you can't isolate.
Yeah, and to go back, EDR stands for Endpoint Detection and Response. XDR is basically an enhancement of EDR. It's extended detection and response. So the XDR tool set is going to be more capable of detecting those pieces. And then obviously the folks that are in the EDR and XDR space, they're also layering behavioral analytics and artificial intelligence and machine learning, and especially around supply chain and SolarWinds. The reason that was detected in some of the vendors that we work with and partners that we work with is because of that understanding that it didn't meet a certain baseline based upon what the machine already knew. It
was doing something unusual.
Correct. And that is how they detected that. So the tool sets have come a long, long way. What we're all about, especially in the MDR space, is taking those tool sets, making them better, learning from other customers, learning from other verticals, building some additional intelligence into the machine, and then, obviously threat hunting and reporting, and again, building your program to your business from a risk-based perspective.
Definitely. And again, I want to reinforce the fact that when it's all that you do, when your job is to look for threats or to look for incidents, indicators of compromise, you get good at it.
Right.
You recognize, okay, that's benign. This is important. These are the things we're going to focus on.
Right. Like if I need shoulder surgery, I'm going to go to the folks that
Dr.
do
Krimchek.
100 a day.
Yeah, you're going to the orthopedist.
Right.
You're not going to a general practitioner.
Exactly.
Without a doubt. Okay, the next question is going to be for me, so I'll just ask myself, John, what's this I hear about privacy? What's going on with privacy? Oh, I'm glad you asked, John. It's really important.
You have a lot of these conversations with yourself, don't you?
I sit in a dark room sometimes.
I was going to say, he's practiced that a few times.
Yeah.
Well, working from home has its pluses and its minuses. What can I say?
There is help, John.
Yes, call 911. No, seriously, the privacy space is a space that I'm watching very closely. It's not just GDPR, which was a huge deal in 2018, which feels like a lifetime ago. Obviously, it was May of 2018, but GDPR was sort of the volley across the bow for the major companies that basically make money selling data. So the United States is fairly well behind the curve, with the exception of a few states. California got on the bandwagon very early. They obviously could see what was going on over in Europe. And the nice thing is, in one sense, Google, Facebook, Twitter, pick your favorite, Amazon, all these companies that make money selling data, pushing ads to their customers have to now be able to track the tracking that they're doing on people. I can go to Amazon, I can go to Google, I can go to Facebook, I can go to Twitter, I can go to Instagram and say, what data do you have about me? I want you to forget about me. And they have to forget about it. They have to delete it, which means they have to know where it is in their systems. California has gotten on the same bandwagon. They came out in 2020 with the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA. They now have a Consumer Rights Act for Californians, so that the original law that was passed in California said that if you have over 50,000 customers that you're then selling the data about, it fell into that category for that first California, the CCPA. Now, in January 2023, CPRA, the Consumer Privacy Rights Act, yes, I think they could have changed the letters a little bit more to make it a little easier to remember. Now, the similar rights that the GDPR gives European Union citizens is true for Californians, which means anybody doing business in the United States has to basically follow the regulations of California.
Correct.
So it's one of these things where California, even though obviously they're only one state out of 50, even if they weren't the biggest state, because you have customers that are in California, you now have to pay attention to this.
Right.
So it's going to be an opportunity, and I do see it as an opportunity for businesses to think about where their data resides. And it would probably be not just a good thing to do from a regulatory standpoint, it would be a smart thing to do from protecting your data.
Right.
You might not have to worry about all of your Apache logs from all your website traffic if you're not going to market it, and if you are doing something where you're not selling the data, some of these laws will not have as much of an impact. But it's still a good exercise. There's also, before I forget, Virginia has a consumer protection regulation, and Colorado has a consumer protection regulation. Those are the three that are in force in 2023, and the other states are all working on it. There's actually a safe harbor rule in the state of Ohio that if you show that you are doing a decent job, that's not legal language. This is not a legal opinion. I am only expressing my own opinions on this program.
We are not attorneys.
Yes, we are not attorneys. But there is a Safe Harbor Act in the state of Ohio where if you have a security program and you're doing basic cybersecurity hygiene, you are basically insulated from tort actions, basically lawsuits. So it's and if anybody else has more background on that, please feel free to chime in.
You have to just prove that you've done your due diligence as an organization to get that safe harbor protection. There's a list of criteria in order to fill that. So it's not something that's super difficult. It's definitely a lot less restrictive than the California Privacy Act or all the different acronyms that you just spouted off. I don't remember them all myself, but I think it's good. GDPR forced companies that were doing international business to set a baseline for security. So now every website you go to tells you about all the cookies. That's why. That's because GDPR. California is doing that now in the United States, which may help other companies in the United States. Local companies probably won't think about it too much, but if you're a national company, you'd absolutely have to start thinking about that.
Well, and
follow those rules.
With the online business, I think almost every company has to think about being a nationwide company.
Yep.
I bet
you should.
I bet there are people that order graders that are in California.
Yeah, probably.
As they should.
If I lived in California, I would be ordering graders.
Yeah, that's probably a shameless plug for graders, but it's amazing.
And I'm not getting paid for that. There's no graders, placard.
There's no T-shirt underneath.
So, but anyways, anybody else?
Yeah, accountability, right? You just you have to take care of your citizens' data.
Your customers' data.
Yeah, you have to understand what responsibility that you have. If you're making money off of it, or if you're using it for a service, you need to know what you have, and that this is an attempt to make sure people are held accountable and that they take seriously protecting individuals' data. And in Canada, I think there's going to be legislation coming here soon
It's international. Yes.
Right. We're spending a lot of time and attention in India because of our workforce there.
Yes.
They've got new rules and regulations that were approved, I think, either last year or this year, and those are going to start taking into effect over the next couple of years. But it's but you're right. GDPR got the ball rolling. California jumped on it very quickly, as they always do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's simple accountability, understanding what you have and being able to protect your duty to protect, sensitive data.
Because I see it as a sales option in the sense, or a way of telling your customers, we care about your data. We're going to safely protect the data.
Absolutely.
I can see it as a market differentiator, honestly. I don't know how you market it, but to me.
Yeah. And then from, the services perspective and internally and externally, we talked about the program approach. Like, we need to know where you live. Like, we need to help. We need to know where the data resides. There's some real penalties in some of these regulations, and we have to pay attention to it. So what we're doing is trying to come to an average lowest common denominator, and then be able to build from that.
Yep, makes sense. All right, on our next topic it's a topic that's come up with the proliferation of security tools that are out there. It can be not just a smorgasbord of acronyms.
Oh, but it is.
It is.
Continues to get
it
more
is
and more.
definitely. Just feed the beast, more acronyms. But Tim, have you seen customers start to try to reduce the number of vendors that they have to deal with?
I think they have to, right? I mean, we've certainly seen it. We support a number of different customers here at CBTS. So some of the customer size depends on some of the consolidation. I remember, when I got into this industry about 20 years ago, like, you were okay if you just had a firewall, right?
Yes.
Like that was
like,
all you needed.
needed.
Then all of a sudden, well, we might want to take care of spam, or some worms may come through here, or, something of that nature. And so, like, all of a sudden things started to build. More vendors came out of the woodwork, right? And next thing you know, we're here in, now 2023.
Yep.
And there's 1 million vendors out there. And quite frankly, my team supports a number of them.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting. But all of our customers are being asked to do more with less. So defend your network with
protect your users,
defend the network, protect the data, but do it with less people. The amount of training now with less people, having all these different types of tools. We talked earlier about MDR and having alert fatigue. Like, if your staff is small and you're asked to do more with less, how can you be trained up enough and smart, to be able to take all that data in? Again, they have alert fatigue. Are they going to be able to get to everything? No. So you start consolidating and try to work towards a single pane of glass, if you will. Right?
I was a big fan of it. Yes.
It's not necessarily about running some same OS or anything. It's about having that pane of glass that you're going to see things from. So again, you're seeing multiple vendors acquire other vendors, and it's like, hey, who's going to make the best single pane of glass that I can see all these different areas of my network to where I can defend it?
Right. I mean, I loved it. There was a vendor that I worked with where I could see my switch infrastructure, I could see my wireless access point infrastructure, I could see the firewalls. Right. The only thing it didn't see was emails, spam filtering and whatnot, and it didn't see antivirus. But that was good because I could see the network health on a single pane of glass. It makes a big difference. And Chris, you probably have some experience with that.
To Tim's point, they're trying to do more with less and get better at the same time, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's efficiency, and especially in the security space, it is accuracy and response. And it's hard to do that when you're stitching together, multiple tools.
From different vendors.
From different vendors. They all have APIs, but, then you have to support, those connectors, those integrations, those automations.
And the vendors are updating, usually at least quarterly. Sometimes they're pushing out updates faster than that.
Depending upon the manufacturer.
Right.
You'll get people that are updating stuff much quicker than quarterly.
Well, we certainly
and to stay up to date on all those, is crazy.
That's a lot of what we do is look at advisories day in, day out. We've got, I don't even know how many feeds we're looking at this point, but just that alone. So that's yet another set of feeds you have to monitor and make sure. And
the consolidation effort too, when you think about automation, we talk to a lot of customers about automating as much as we can to take care of those mundane tasks that that can
automate the routine.
Absolutely, so that you can respond to those bigger incidents that are coming in. You can consolidate as much as possible and then automate a lot of that. You're going to be able to not have to worry about having so many people on staff. We're in a deficiency of security folks in the industry.
Right. I mean, a million plus openings, open jobs.
If not more.
If not more.
As much as we can do to consolidate and automate, that's key.
Well, vendors are helping with that, right? Like you alluded to earlier, larger vendors are buying smaller new technologies.
Yeah, I would say niche technologies that, because there's always something new. Mm-hmm. There's always something new. Some new
there's
vendor
a new
comes out.
quadrant, all the time.
There's some new thing that's like, hey, this new widget blocks this one particular area that no one's ever thought about before. They get a little bit bigger. Large organizations come in and say, okay, we want to make this part of our larger security portfolio.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, it's interesting. I saw one vendor who was like, oh yeah, these vendors all look at inbound email. Who's looking at outbound email? And I'm like, I think I'm a little more worried about the inbound email. And they're like, but you could have data exfiltration.
That's right.
I'm like,
I say, don't forget about insider threat, man. I mean,
insider threat. That is actually a topic for a separate inside the CISO's office.
No doubt.
It's a
multiple ones.
Yeah, it could be. Well,
series on it.
Yeah, part 1 of the insider threat.
The producers are listening, so keep that on.
I think it's already been booked.
Yeah, it's already on the schedule.
It's already. There we go.
And go.
And go. Any other comments? We have one final topic.
I do want to say, don't sleep on log aggregation and SIM still. Vendor consolidation is good, but those two tools, one tool really could be done all in one thing, is the true place for a single pane of glass. And that's where you get your automation built into that as well. So don't sleep on those particular technologies.
Chris, have you seen any advances in the SOAR part of the response, that orchestration and the automation for response? Have you
leaps and bounds in the last 12 months, I would say, especially, with a lot of our partners, they're investing a lot into that. And that's another point with the tool consolidation is it's hard to, build an agnostic SOAR platform
that can ingest anybody's.
That you have to build those connectors, those integrations, those triggers. That's yet another person that you have to have skills and support and
trained up.
Exactly.
It's a lot of normalization work is really the big thing.
Wait a minute. You don't want me writing your playbooks? I thought we were pals.
No, are you talking security playbooks or football playbooks? I pick one.
Red Right 88. Yeah. Probably neither, honestly. But
Omaha.
Omaha. All right. Our last topic for this round: third-party risk. It's a new acronym. Third-party risk management. TPRM. So memorize it. There'll be a quiz.
I can appreciate that there's a new acronym for it, but it's just definitely
TPRM.
That's what I heard.
What is it?
TPRM.
There was no vowels in there. I'm sorry.
TPRM.
Yes.
I can appreciate that there's an actual official acronym for it.
Honest God.
But why did it take so long?
Well, some of us were thinking about third-party risk way back before SolarWinds. I mean, some of us were thinking about, before Kaseya, before SolarWinds. You could, if you were paying attention in 2017 with what was happening in Ukraine with that little bitty piece of software that everybody in Ukraine used for accounting that happened to wipe out Maersk and any other, non-Ukrainian business that happened to have a connection there. Third-party risk, where do we see any kind of assistance coming? Anybody want to throw something out there? Chris?
Well, I think we talked about some of the government, the regulatory and some of the things that are coming around privacy. That, don't quote me on this, but I either feel or I read something.
This is being recorded.
So I take it you're quoted.
So, strike it from the record. No, but again, it's that responsibility and accountability. Incidents that we have seen over the last 3 years, it's 90% end user and third party.
So two vectors, really.
Right, really. There's multiple frameworks out there. There's a NIST framework out there. There's an ISO framework. It's pick a framework, build your processes, give your organization your guardrails.
Do your due diligence.
Do your due diligence. Talk to your vendors. We have SOC 2. We have a myriad of different compliance reports frameworks. We primarily use NIST, but we have our SOC 2 and our customers are asking, right? That's anytime we engage our vendors, we're asking for their attestations and their SOC 2, and you have to protect our customers' data. You have to protect us. We have to protect our customers, and we also have to protect ourselves for our customers. All of that is important. So we have seen, 3 or 4x over the last 4 years, the number of requests coming from customers, from vendors, from partners in this space.
CBTS is a trusted third party for a lot of customers.
Right.
And we have to do our due diligence.
Right.
And then what I've been preaching to the folks that I've talked to is, have you looked at those contracts you signed with your vendors
Correct.
to say, are they doing the things you want them to do? Does your vendor security profile match yours?
You know, when we're doing new agreements with customers, we have to present all that information early on to even get through like an MSA with them. Like that, we can't do business unless we're showing
Master
them.
service agreement for those.
Master service agreement for those that don't follow the acronyms. But we have to do that in order to even transact any business with them.
Yep.
They won't do it unless we can verify that we are doing what we say we're doing.
But verifying.
I was interested in this topic just because when I think about a large organization that we have worked with over the years that had their IP was very
intellectual property,
and their intellectual property was their crown jewels, right?
Oh yeah.
And so they were being hammered by nation state organizations, right?
Yes.
Constantly. And when they got tired of beating on that organization because they weren't getting in, they said, where can we go?
Where's the softer target?
We're going to go to all these other partners that are VPN'd in, that have VPN access into this organization and doing business with this organization. And then they would go ahead and compromise them to where finally, the CISO's like, we got to shut you off. You can't do business with us until you clean up your house.
Yeah, and it would be new acquisitions too, right?
And
who did
absolutely.
they just buy
Yes.
that they're going to interconnect with their network, whether it's a site-to-site VPN, MPLS circuit, SD-WAN, whatever interconnect they're going to have with that organization. That's a risk. One important thing to note is review those agreements as you sign them, but review them on a yearly, at least an annual basis.
At least an annual basis.
Yes.
Go back and double check and make sure they're still doing the things they said they were going to be doing. And it's okay to update those things at that time too. As part of that review, we've got new security things we have every year. We got new security requirements, new ideas, new ways to do things,
New tools.
I mean, password requirements change all the time, which is great. That's that we're moving in the right direction for that sort of thing. But if the third party that you have isn't also adjusting to those things, you need to ask them serious questions as to why they're not.
Yep.
Right. and the regulations change, as we talked about like 2 questions ago, in terms of privacy and data protection. If your trusted vendor is not staying current with those regulations, that's going to be a problem for you.
Right.
As you're contracted with them, you got to make sure that those things are covered.
Yep, and don't forget about software bills of material.
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you about SBOMs. What are they good for?
Well, that means software bills of material. I'll do John's job here for you.
Thank you.
So that is the concept of knowing all the parts of software that is in a vendor's product or a piece of software that you have. So every component that's in a software package, or
You mean like Log4j?
like if you're running Apache on a system,
Let's say you're running Apache.
for instance.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically. So like if you have an IPS that runs Apache because the interface is a web server, you need to know what Apache components are being run as part of that service. And you want to have that all stored in a centralized system so that when a new vulnerability comes out, God forbid there would be one, you can go back and say, well, we have this component or we don't. And what version of that component do we have on the system? And then you can go back to the vendor and say, hey,
Update.
do you have an update? Do we need to shut it off? Or, can we patch it ourselves?
Correct.
Right.
Now, is that an annual reviewable thing or just when?
That's an all the time review.
That's an all the time
You should
review.
do that constantly. Yeah,
Okay.
it should be a constant update. If you can limit it to a monthly cycle,
That'd be great.
what's your risk appetite? How long do you want to be down for, and not be able to go back and say we know this information? So that would be what you want to do. I would say continually you want to keep that updated.
I mean, everybody here at this table knows that's not an easy thing to do.
No,
No,
it's
it is not.
difficult.
But it is a good thing to do. And if you can, it goes back to the other point about trying to minimize your vendor inventory.
Right.
If you have committed yourself to limiting the number of vendors to say, let's say you only want to have 2 security vendors that you're working with. I'm just picking a number out of the air. Then you know that those 2 vendors will have their software bill of materials, or you can at least start to lean on them to get a software bill of materials.
You want one for all the components that they're providing you. So
Correct.
if you've got a large vendor that's providing you cloud protection and network protection and email protection and all that stuff, it's all wrapped into one thing. There's going to be different software bills of material for each of those components because they're different software,
right. Yep.
technically. So
And as we found out with Log4j, it can exist in so many places that you didn't think it was going to be.
Yeah.
And on that note, appreciate everybody joining me here today.
Thanks, John.
And it's been great. We could actually probably talk for another hour.
Oh, yeah.
You probably could.
Even without little shots of something to drink. So
Probably should.
Can we get that next time?
Yeah, can we
I'll
have that
talk-
in the middle of the table?
I'll
next
talk to
time?
the producer and see what we can work out. But thank you all very much. Thank you for joining us, and take it away, Lance.
John and our guests, thank you so much for joining today. Thank you for everybody out there watching. And until next time, take care.